All right, the time is now 7:03. I call this meeting to order of the Columbus Common Council Committee of the Whole for Tuesday, May 2nd, 2017. And if you could take the roll, please.
Hendrickson. Here. Kenny.
Here.
Malott.
Here.
Reed.
Here.
Rule.
Here.
Tome.
Here.
Traxler.
Here.
All present.
All right, this meeting has been noticed appropriately according to state statutes. I know we do have a few alterations to the agenda before we get going and approve that. We are looking to table item number 5, and we are switching the orders of item 14 and 16. Any comments on that or additional changes or edits?
I'm good. Looks good.
We're good. I would look to get a motion to approve the agenda as altered.
So moved.
Alderman Rule,
Oh,
what we are showing is 15 and 17, the two closed session items.
Okay.
Yeah, it'd be
I didn't print off the.
the amended.
Thank you.
Yeah, if you need my copy.
We'll be good.
Okay.
It's just numbers.
Oh, yeah.
Thank
The
you,
last
Patrick.
two items.
Right. There we go. All right. So with that in mind, take a motion to approve the agenda as altered.
So moved. Second.
Everybody in favor, say aye.
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 And moving on, has anyone signed up for public comments? All right, thank you. All right, so with that, we will move right into item number 6. Consider the contract for roof repairs for Fireman's Park Rest Haven. Davis is here with DPW.
Thank you, everybody. Mayor Tome, do you want to take over from as to the new developments?
Yeah, after the last meeting, the last committee of the whole meeting where we had discussed the issue of the rubber roof, I received an email the following day from someone that I had met months ago and had a discussion about a possible steel roof or looking for material that would apply on a low-pitch roof that we have on the Rest Haven building. Unfortunately, that person didn't reach out until the day after the last discussion, which was very poor timing. I did meet that contractor that Friday and expressed that we didn't want to slow this process down and we needed to get that roof done. We were planning to do it this spring, so he did get some measurements and sent me an email or a narrative anyway with some basic information and was hoping to have a contract and some more specifics for the meeting today. I did forward an email to Davis and to Patrick to kind of share the information up front. But essentially, there's some information in your packet that goes along with that steel product. But at this point, it looks like the estimate or the proposal from that contractor, Rustic Homes and Remodeling, would be for $22,000 for the product stated. So I appreciate at least allowing the conversation at the committee of the whole one more time. And now we've pretty much been exposed to, all 3 possibilities for a roof on that building. The rubber, the fiber tight, and now the steel product. So I appreciate you at least allowing that conversation.
So I guess at this point, for Public Works, HLPC, we need council's direction as to which product are you really considering? If you'd like us to get, if you're thinking about a metal roof, I'd like to get more quotes. Again, it's always best to have 3. If you're not interested in the metal roof, then maybe we can move forward with the rubber membrane. But I guess amongst yourselves, I need direction as to where we go from here.
All right, well, let's jump off right there. Andy, you want to?
Well, last meeting you had said that we never asked you to get a quote for metal roofing, and technically you were correct. It was Carolyn at the October 17th meeting, 2 months later, that she indicated she would get us metal roofing quotes for the spring. We did get one last minute. I'm not opposed to getting more bids, but I think there's one in front of us. It's comparative to the other types of material. So I don't know if we need to hold this up too much. I noticed that there are 6 structures in Fireman's Park that also have steel roofs. And, well, the deer pen, that's a structure, but so we'll go with 5. So, but hey, the deer pen has a metal roof, right? So, I mean, I was just reading up on it. I like the metal roof idea. I mean, I've kind of always been in support of that, but, it's got a 40-year warranty on the paint alone on the top. It locks together and it's sealed tight. Rubber roofs, there tends to be problems with the seams. So long term, that could be a little more money overall. And there's many different colors to choose from, and it's something maybe I think the HLPC group should, if we went metal, could look at. But I did notice that they were all green already in the park. If it's it's about $2,000 more than the budget, I know we could certainly cover that out of contingency, but I think long term it's probably the right way to go for me. Thank you.
Trina.
I'm also leaning towards the metal roof. I love the color palette and how we can get a little more both historical and matching look to have the park look a little bit like a unit. And I'm really happy that the metal roofs aren't that much more expensive than the other ones. I'm surprised the quote given isn't more.
Rod?
Did you say the metal roof has a 40-year warranty?
Yeah, it's right in this flyer actually here.
Oh, I kept looking for it. I couldn't
40
find
year.
it. And the other ones are
page-
20 years, so it's 20 extra years for a couple $1,000, which is kind of swaying my opinion.
So, Rod, you're in favor of seeking
Yeah.
metal roof bids? It seems like we somewhat have consensus here.
The 20-year warranty.
I too agree. I would like to see bids on the metal roofs and agree with you, Davis, that having a few more numbers to look at, including the rustic homes folks, giving them a chance to firm up their bid. As far as I understand, that's a pretty soft number at this point, and hopefully shying to the high side at this point. But I think at this point we have direction. We'll go ahead and seek some more bids for metal
Okay,
roofs and hope to
We'll go back out
keep
for
this.
some bids. We'll come back to council as soon as we have a couple
Perfect.
more. I'd like to have at least 3, and then we'll move forward from there.
How long do you think that might take you, Davis?
I think we can have them, we might be able to have some for the next meeting, but
That'd be awesome.
definitely for the meeting after that.
Good
So we'll
deal.
keep this moving as quick as we can.
All right, thank you,
All
sir.
right, thank you for your help on this.
If I could make one comment, just when you do go out for bid, Davis, I think what we need to do is specifically look at the Snap Lock 24 is what this product is called.
Yeah,
because that
try and
can-
go apples to apples with what you already have.
Yeah, or there might be another brand that does the same thing, but this is one of the few products that conforms to that low pitch application. So I think it might be easier to, they're gonna
Yeah.
have to use this type of product, so
I
just wanted
agree.
to mention that. Okay, thank you.
All right. Great, thank you.
All right, thanks, Davis. Yes, Patrick?
Yes, I just want to, for clarification, if Davis is able to get his bids and we get it to you, would we be bringing it to regular meeting or the committee of the whole?
I guess I would be in favor of committee of the whole at this point because we've
For
yet to
another
see the bids and compare them.
Review and discussion, yeah?
Mhm.
Okay.
And then we could hopefully look to move that along real quick, and if everything lines up right, maybe we can get this settled by the first meeting in June
Okay.
and still have good weather ahead of us. Anything further on that topic? All right. We are moving on to proposals for 2017 sanitary sewer collection system repairs. And
So
for
it-
that,
Yeah, I can just start us off. I think we'll bring Dave up here in a minute, but
Okay.
just a refresher to some and just information to others. This is from 2016, actually, where we had the original project where it was in the 2016 budget, but we had really low number of bidders. Even I can't remember if we even had a bidder. So because the scope of the project and the small amount of targeted work, we felt, okay, well, why don't we match it up with some of the plans for 2017 and rebid it? So that's what we had talked about at budget, and that's why it's here before us now. So this would be information on the bids for the project, and that's really the summary of where we're at right now. If you have specific or technical questions, Dave Arnott from Rooker Milky is here.
Anybody have questions for Dave at this point? Matt?
Dave, if you want to jump up, or Patrick, okay. We'll just call you David for the rest of the night, Jason.
This one's mine, we drew straws, Dave lost, so.
Kind of just running through the initial information provided to us. I believe it was talked about that there would be other locations. I'm sorry here. On the information from your letter dated the 13th, base bids and alt A, B, and C, I wasn't exactly clear as to what that is specifically referring to.
Okay, so Patrick was correct in summarizing that this was the project that we had started last fall. We had designed it. We did not get any interested bidders in the fall, so we kind of shelved it. We did pull it out, and the initial project was for work that was associated with some sewer work on both Folsom Streets by the pool. It's basically eliminating a sewer line that has no laterals on and reconnecting it into another line. So we're actually removing kind of a poor deteriorated line and just taking it out of service by rerouting it with a short connection. So that was the first project. The second project was repairing some manholes on Fuller Street. And then what we did this year was the focus of staff was to look at some of our brick manholes. We have a fair amount of old brick manholes under some of the old streets, and those are a good source for infiltration and I&I that we're trying to reduce at the plant. So what we did was we comprised a list of those brick manholes, and we have more than we have money for. So what we did was we picked out a group of them, put them in the bid, and then what we did was we had some alternate bids, and those alternate bids were for like manholes. So we wanted to try and get bidders to bid it, and we could accept the alternate bids kind of up to the budget. So we could try and get as much as we could done with that. What we found was we had 7 brick manhole replacements on various streets in the base bid. And with the base bid and the 2 projects from last year, the bids came in that we were recommending just to accept that work only, because that pretty much took us to our budget. We weren't able to get any more of these additional manholes. I think there was 3 of them. Alternate A was a manhole, B was a manhole, and C was a manhole. And so we're recommending obviously doing those initial manholes with the 2 other projects from last year, and that brings us up to our total. And I know I did confirm with Kim, I have an email from her saying that we were still within the budget with what we were recommending, and that's what we based our letter off of. So hopefully that kind of clarifies that it's really just a lot of the manhole replacements is what we were focusing on this
It'd be base bid and then additive on A, B, and C if the bid had come in lower.
If they would have came in lower, we would have then recommended those additional manholes, correct?
Can I keep going?
The floor is yours.
Just to clarify for the recent revenue bond, Kim, is that exactly which bond was that? I take it as there was cost savings in one of the bonds, and then money would be used from which one, or is this a bond for? Just kind of clarifying some of the information here. Sorry to kind of pepper you both.
This particular bid is basically out of the sewer utilities actual budget.
Okay.
The revenue bond took care of the Kiwanis lift station and generator. And so that would be a different item that we'd be talking about in just a little bit here.
Okay.
Further questions? Comments, concerns?
Just for clarification, Kim, don't we usually budget about $75,000 annually for the collection system replacement?
Yes.
Okay. So that's within what we would normally do, the low bid on this anyway. Okay. Thank you.
So I believe Rupert Milky has made the recommendation of Nelson Excavating and Son LLC. Say again. Oh,
Nope.
Matt, go ahead.
Sorry, Jason, we got a lot of pages in here. I'm kind of coming across my notes. Of these different manholes, I reached out to Patrick today, kind of get an idea. Are any of these located in streets that are on a higher up on our list? I know at the post-mortem, there's kind of there's been a couple different running lists of roads to be addressed as part of the capital improvements. Are any of these on a road that they might be kind of doubling up on the effort here, or are we definitely patching some roads that are farther down?
Right. So that's a very good question, Matt. I appreciate you asking that. One of the things that we discussed with staff was if we have 30 brick manholes, let's make this a selective choice to kind of focus on what we're doing with our streets. So what we didn't want to do is we didn't want to replace a manhole under a street that was rated fairly well, because we figured that's going to last a while. We didn't want to necessarily patch it in a good street right now. We can always do that as the street deteriorates a little further. We also didn't want to pick a manhole and replace it under a street that's really bad, because if that's on the hit list and we have a reconstruction coming up, it doesn't make sense to replace it now, unless if it's ultimately failing. So what we focused on was looking at our street ratings, again, from a scale of 1 to 10. We focused on the middle kind of group 3s and 4s. So we know those aren't probably streets that are going to be priority on our upcoming list for reconstructs, but we know that they're good enough to last for a while. So, and a patch is probably in some cases going to help that street out. In some cases, it's probably not going to hurt it, as if it was a better street. So that's what we really focused on. So the manholes in the base bid are on Waterloo, School, Prairie, and Fountain streets primarily, and those streets are all on sections rated a 3 or a 4, and they're all the brick manholes. So yeah, we did take a look at that, and that's a good comment to bring up, just so everybody's aware that we were kind of being cognizant of that, so we weren't.
Did you guys target or identify any that were maybe in a different score range for the street score that were, needing replacement now just because they are having so much infiltration, or hard to know?
Right. So, we have a bunch of them, and I have some pictures actually. I printed them out. I thought I might as well show them off. Everybody likes looking at a manhole. But what you'll find is most of the manholes you can see are brick, and they have actually bricks that are falling in. Those are the ones that if you look at the surface of the roads, a lot of times the castings are actually starting to there'll be a dip there, and there'll be some pavement deterioration around those structures. And so those are kind of the worst ones that we kind of picked out of the group, and these kind of fit in that range of, we knew they weren't reconstruct candidates, so we kind of prioritized them as, let's find the worst ones that aren't under the streets we might be reconstructing, and let's try and pick those. So again, if they're under a relatively good street, the hope is that we would have addressed those when we rebuilt the streets or when we resurfaced them. In some cases, there are a few brick ones under those streets, but for the most part, they're under the streets we haven't done anything with.
Looks like a diamond ring laying in the bottom of this one right there. Dive in.
I'm not going down there.
What is the age of these brick-built ones approximately? What's your guess?
I don't honestly know. I would guess that, some of those old manholes are probably in the 20s, 30s era. That's similar to when some of those old concrete streets were built. All that old concrete pavement we have in some of the older sections of town. So again, most of those are original manholes from that time period. And, obviously you can see some of them are actually not too bad considering of the age, but, when you see the bricks falling in the bottom and stuff, those are obviously ones that we can't really seal or coat the inside of. We just really have to take them out and replace them and patch them. So, and I think the staff has done a really good job with this maintenance project of focusing on replacing chimney seals and castings on manholes over the years, and we got quite a history of doing that. But now we're kind of getting into the little bit bigger ones where we're just replacing the entire structures. We're not just focusing on the castings or the chimneys or the cones. So, but yeah, that's really part of the base bid that we're recommending. And we did check with Nelson. Nelson is fairly reputable. We had no comments or reasons to believe they can't complete the work. So we were pretty happy with the results within the budget. So.
Thanks, Jason.
I think Matt's done. Anybody else? No? All right, so the recommendation, as Jason just stated, was for Nelson Excavating and Son LLC. Do we want to move this forward to the regular meeting with that recommendation in hand and take a vote on it there?
I'm good.
Everybody's in favor of moving it forward?
Yep.
All right, we will move that forward. Thank you. Moving on, it's more sewer fun. Right? Or no, are we doing?
Yep, number 8 is still the second half of that.
Or is 8 went
Yeah.
to the pool?
We thought we'd
yeah.
split the middle of the sewer and throw
That's
this
what threw
one
me
in.
off with Kim's question.
Right. So do you want to go ahead and do the pool now? Or do we want to just go
We
ahead
can
and
just
do
go
the,
ahead maybe with the sewer.
wrap it up with the
Yeah.
Kiwanis lift station project? Perfect. Anybody from staff, or would Mr. Arnett like to come up and speak on this?
Good evening. I am here to present the proposed change order to the Kiwanis Lift Station project. The original project was to add a standby generator at the pump station and also replace the sewage pumps. And with the replaced pumps, you are going to have a little bit more capacity and less clogging problems. So I scoped the project out with wastewater staff probably 8 to 10 months ago. And at this point, as the memo states, the project has been, design has been completed, it's been bid out, and it's been brought to my attention by wastewater staff that there is a problem with grease, fats, and oils at this lift station. And it's been getting worse in the last several months. So what happens is, because of commercial facilities discharging grease and maybe some residential facilities, there's a coating that accumulates at the top of the wet well. And John Namer has reported that on some instances it can be as thick as 1 foot. And you can it's almost solid enough to walk across. So it is a problem, and staff was wondering if there could be a mixer added to this project. The mixer would be on a timer and it would be programmable. It would operate typically 10 to 15 minutes per hour and mix up the contents of the wet well so you don't get that formation of that scum on top of the wet well. The fats, oils, and grease would be kind of homogenized in the sewage, pumped with the regular pumps, and be routed through the collection system and end up at the treatment facility. And John has reported to me that he has the facilities at the treatment facility to handle that grease. So there's been a couple updates to this since this memo was put together. And one of the things has been that the cost for the control panel that's associated with this mixer, it's a hand off on switch and a motor starter, was more than I anticipated. The second thing is, through coordination with the mixer manufacturer, in the last several days, in looking at the size of the wet well, which is about 14 feet long by 5 feet wide, it is not felt that a second access door would be required. The only spot for a second access door is about 4 feet away. So that was put in originally because the grease accumulates at the far end. But so the thinking was we would put the mixer in the new location. But this mixer is going to be powerful enough that it's going to mix the contents of this wet well very effectively and thoroughly. And really the extra cost for a second access door would not be money well spent, in my opinion. So deleting that out of the scope and adding the little bit of extra money for the starter and control panel, the numbers in the memo are still valid. So at the end of the day, I think that's what counts. Presently, this is a safety issue because wastewater staff has to enter the wet well and manually use a mixer manually on attached to a stick and try to mix up the contents when this scum layer forms. And it's just not a good situation at all from a safety standpoint to have any type of personnel in a wet well where you're dealing with hazards from hydrogen sulfide to not enough light to working in and around water. It's just a bad situation. A properly designed and functioning lift station wet well does not have the need for personnel to enter it. And I guess the obvious question is, why wasn't this included in the original scope of the project? And I guess my answer for that is the original scope was really all about standby generator power. Another piece of it was replacing the pumps. There wasn't really any other work to be done in the wet well part. I did not ask that question. Is there a grease problem here? It didn't come up in the conversation. So not the perfect answer, but that's some type of explanation. So the cost in this memo that you have here, this is not from a contractor. There is going to be some engineering involved, so we didn't want to do the engineering and get the numbers from a contractor. These numbers are with us coordinating with various suppliers and vendors, and we feel pretty good about these numbers. If this is approved, the next step would be to do the engineering of the technical specs and the drawings and provide that information to the general contractor and ask them for a cost. And that cost would presumably be less than this $17,000 that we have at the bottom of the memo. So I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Rod, go ahead.
Where is the Kiwanis lift station?
It is
Kiwanis.
right next to Kiwanis Park.
Oh, okay, that's right. Okay. And I think this is a safety issue if John decides to try to walk across the foot deep of slime.
I agree.
I'm all for this.
Matt?
So just to clarify, you said that the control panel for the mixer cost came in a little higher than you expected.
Right.
And as far as I understand, going forward with what you have here, the current numbers were for installing the mixer as well as the second door, and now you're expecting to not put a second door in.
That is
Because you
correct.
feel it'd be basically doubling up in the same area. And with using the mixer itself in there won't be a need for somebody to enter the confined space in the first place, thus necessitating the second door. So,
Absolutely right.
do you have a rough idea of where you think you'd be taking out the second door, sticking with the mixer, with the control panel, to kind of get a rough idea of what this is going to come in at, since you did provide some kind of rough numbers initially?
Mm-hmm.
Or, I mean, are we looking a door, $1,000 door, or, $5 door kind of thing?
The work for the access door involves a structural analysis of the deck to make sure you can put another hole. It involves cutting out a square section, and it involves lastly the door itself, which is on a curb that's up about 8 to 10 inches. So that totals about $3,000.
Okay. Obviously, then taking out some additional costs for the engineering to not have to do the structural analysis for itself as well.
Right.
Is there any concern with, I don't know much about the mixers when it comes to lift stations, but obviously there's generators that don't run 100% of the time. With this running every 10 to 15 minutes, is there a noise concern that might arise because of this for being in that area?
No, this is going to be in the wet well enclosed with the access door over the top of it.
It's all self-contained
It's
within
all
the wet cell.
self-contained.
Okay.
Right. It'll be submerged. The motor's designed to be submerged.
Okay. So going forward with this, as far as R&M would say that by doing this, you're going to mix all of that fats and solids in with everything, and then it can be processed at the plant, thus
Yes.
clearing out any need anymore for DPW guys to get, or wastewater guys to get down in there and have to
Right.
worry about that. Okay.
Absolutely.
I'm good.
Mike?
I guess I just have a question about, that the accumulated grease has become kind of a sudden problem, it sounds like. Is that something that's considered normal? I mean, we have to deal with the problem, it sounds like, in the lift station, but if it wasn't normal to have that much accumulated grease a year ago or 2 years ago, and now it suddenly becomes a problem, are you able to kind of like locate the source of that? Is this considered high-strength waste, or is this normal waste, and it's just a problem at this one lift station? I just wanted to understand that better.
This is normal waste, and
Okay.
it's a problem at this particular lift station. So we had a wastewater meeting a couple of weeks ago, and we talked internally about long-term putting forth a maintenance program to try to control fats, oils, and grease within the city. It's a common problem for a lot of municipalities. Enforcement is very tough. You can mandate that when a new development takes place, you have to have a grease trap, and there are probably a lot of grease traps in the city. The key lies in how often those grease traps are pumped out. Are they pumped out once a year, or once every 2 years, or never? Or are they pumped out once a month or twice a month? And getting facilities to do the once or twice a month is really the crux of the problem.
Thanks for the explanation. Thanks.
Go ahead, Rod.
Is this a problem with all lift stations? Or just this one in particular?
It's not a problem with all lift stations in the city. This is about the worst spot in the city.
So they all have this issue, but this is actually a problem for...
Right. If you look at on the top of any lift station, you'll see commonly a little bit of grease and fat, but this has a large amount.
Matt?
How old is this lift station? Just, I don't know if you, rough ballpark, are we looking at a pretty antiquated system here? Or
We're
something
looking
that's-
at 1980s,
Okay.
maybe late 70s.
Anybody else? So, we obviously need to give these folks an indication of the direction we would like them to proceed as far as second door, stay, go, add the mixer, proceed with this change order.
Sounds like the need is for the addition of a mixer and then a starter control panel, starter and control
Yes.
panel. That's the 3 items that you're looking for, correct?
Right. We're recommending that the second access door be deleted from this change.
I see a lot of nodding heads.
I'm okay
Andy,
with this, yeah.
You're good? Okay, so we will move forward with the recommendation. We have to bring this forward to the next regular meeting, Patrick, to go ahead and vote on that?
It'll be a change order to the project.
Reagan, could we bring this forward with also a note, maybe reaching out to wastewater to talk about maybe a campaign to do a flyer or send some out in the mail, just kind of reminding residents or especially downtown commercial businesses and restaurants that
When disposing
of grease to try to help mitigate the issue long term.
Perhaps if I may, John and I have already had that conversation, and he's putting together a flyer for that purpose.
Okay. Stole my thunder there, David.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Now we will move on to review and consider trim tiles and removal of wall lighting at the Columbus Area Aquatic Center as part of the resurfacing project. And Amy Jo is here. We have some pictures she gave to us right before the meeting started.
Good evening.
Good evening. You want to give us a brief background, Amy Jo, of what was discovered?
Sure. I'll just let you know that they are, excuse me, ahead of schedule. They started a week ago Monday, and they've been working tirelessly, 10, 12-hour days. And we are actually at the point now where they do need a decision if they're going to move forward with the tiling. So what they found while resurfacing is that there are expansion joints that lay within the pool. There are perimeter expansion joints that are tiled, and then there are expansion joints, and those are caulked lines that are there right now. We could continue to caulk, or we could tile these, the 400 lineal feet. The problem is that with the interglass, it creates a smooth surface. Basically, it would be one shell, a continual flow of the fiberglass material. If we just decide to keep the caulk lines, then they will have to put the fiberglass up to the caulk line, there'll be a break, and then fiberglass will continue. So you won't have that one complete shell. They all serve the same purpose, but their thought behind of why it wasn't tiled to begin with, and you'll see that one photo, that one expansion joint does have a tile and then the other one does not. They believe that the pool is so large, yes, that's the one, that they poured the pool in sections so that the concrete would not break. If you do walk through the pool right now, there are many fine line cracks along the caulked expansion joints, but not the tiled expansion joints. So it would be less maintenance for DPW. They won't have to do any caulking on the inside of the pool, just along the perimeter of the wall. So that explains the reason for it. We could go either way, but if you want a clean look, less maintenance, no cracks, because it could crack, the fiberglass could crack, excuse me, just along the caulk lines versus them tiling it.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly, less leaks.
Because the tile is just more durable.
Well, the tile would kind of act like a buffer. So the existing expansion joint right now has a foam piece of equipment, or foam that's in there, that's a buffer between the actual underground layer of the stone and then the caulk, where you would have that layer, the caulk, and then the tile on top of it with the putty.
What's the cost impact of this?
$8,000 for 400 feet.
Matt?
I know kind of talking around to, is calling around a little bit about pools and stuff, and as far as I understand from fiberglass edges, that it can be a safety hazard as well if they have to gap over those joints.
It wouldn't be a
And
smooth, correct.
It wouldn't be smooth, and as far as I've received information, people who did pool stuff, they said that if you have an exposed edge for fiberglass, it can lead to safety issues. So I definitely feel that trying to address not having any sort of potential edges on that would be best suited. I'm a little concerned about the cost per linear foot for the trim tiles and caulking. Numbers I was getting were a little bit lower than that. I don't know if there's any way to really drive them to come to us with a different number, or
It doesn't hurt
is
to
there
ask.
enough time? Are they needing something right now, or is there
They're
time
really,
where?
so, like I said, they're ahead of schedule. They have everything tiled that they need to have tiled, and actually, this week, they're starting the fiberglass on the deep end of the pool, and their goal is to bring in the rest of the crew next week to start laying the rest of the interglass. Our target date to fill the pool is the 22nd of May. I talked to Joe Tata from Mid-America, and he said it would take about 1 week. So if, let's say, we were lucky enough to order the tile tomorrow, we would have it on site next week. They would lay that tile and then finish up and let it cure for 3 days, and then we would fill it. It doesn't hurt to ask. I don't know if there's wiggle room. I'd throw a number at them.
Yeah, I guess I would be more apt to just having somebody else come and take a look at it and get a rough idea. Like I said, numbers that I was getting were definitely lower than this for obviously not having all the information, but some rough idea of that work. Just to make sure that we're getting a good
I can
option.
ask him for a lower price, but I don't know time-wise where we would be at with bringing in somebody else to give us a bid when our target date is set to open May 27th.
And if that's like, obviously the concern, then
Yeah.
is it worth our time and effort to go out and maybe save a couple $1,000s? I just would kind of.
Yeah, I will definitely ask. I don't have a problem asking for a lower price.
I think just by knowing that you've come to understand a better price, maybe that can be conveyed and say, can you do something better for us here? You know?
I guess I kind of like that option as well, as opposed to maybe trying to bring in another cook into the kitchen while the project's already going. So I think that would be something to consider. Any other questions, comments? Mike?
How big are these tiles? I mean, it's hard to tell by this
2
picture.
inches.
They're
Are
2
they
inches.
really?
They're all
2 by
2 inches. Correct.
Okay.
So they actually have the 2 by 2 is on each side of he said they actually put a putty down and then butt the tiles up. And then they putty those tiles, and then the interglass kind of forms all the way up to that edge.
Are they sticking with the same theme, like on this expansion joint that is tiled? Are those tiles still there, or are they being
They are.
replaced?
They've already been retiled. They are retiled as a black color. So the robin's egg blue will be laid down, and the perimeter expansion joints will be black.
Okay.
So if we did go with the 400 lineal feet, that would be a white tile. He said it'd be more subtle versus having a 90-degree angle this way and then another one coming off. You'll just have all these, because there's so many expansion joints. Like Joe thought they did that because the pool is so large. They didn't
Did
want it to
something
crack.
change in the condition of the pool with the last freeze-thaw cycle, or why they didn't maybe bring this to our attention last year when they first looked at it for bid?
They've never been physically on site. Everything has
okay.
just been done through measurements on Google.
Okay.
Google
As far as I
Earth.
understand, they're from Missouri.
And the caulk lines you couldn't see from a distance, and that's probably something that I missed, but I didn't understand that
Yeah.
those also were expansion joints, so.
Good deal. I was just wondering if maybe we'd had a fix on rapid deterioration or something like that, so very
We have
good.
not.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Andy?
Yeah, I was just curious where this is gonna be financed through. How it'd be paid for?
The extra 8,000 you're talking about?
Well,
Maybe
is that
more than that.
8,000 just for this and then
Just
more
for the
for the
tile.
light, right?
Correct.
Well, the whole project.
It would be 12,125 if we went through with all of it.
Okay. Where are we thinking about getting that money from?
I think that, much like last year where we had the unexpected expense for the pump, it would be applied to the pool, and in some years, the revenues don't come in to cover. It would probably come from our undesignated or through a budget amendment at some point this year. What we hope is, we're addressing these issues, and then eventually we won't have any of these surprises anymore, and
Right.
it'll all be good. But with a pool that's how old now?
Yeah.
15 years? or so?
17.
So, okay.
So if we did not caulk, if we did not tile, then DPW would have to re-caulk.
Yeah.
And
And then
that,
we have the
again, would be a
edges
cost
and-
and labor and.
Yeah, I'm on board with this tiling. I think we should do that.
It seems like the long-term maintenance cost is a lot less because of this.
Mm-hmm.
And I think too that I wouldn't undervalue what Davis said about water loss. If you get those
Absolutely.
covered and then you have that seal in the whole pool, that could really be a benefit more than what we're thinking. So
Yeah, because there's the loss of the water, and then there's what the water does when it gets behind the scenes too, so.
exactly.
Yeah.
I'm comfortable moving this forward. It seems like we have consensus here that we're on board with we didn't really talk much about the light issue, I guess.
I will still ask though for reduction in price though.
Good.
So,
Can you explain the light issue, I guess?
I can. The pool has 8 underground lights within the pool. They haven't worked in 5 years. Kane obviously has been there for that many years. Basically, they're a cosmetic at this point. They're just there. They fill up with water. The glass shield pops out, we lose clips. Guards have to go to the bottom to pick the clips up. It's just a constant battle to drain the water out and put the covers back on. We are not required by state to have lights in the pool. So it's just one of those situations where it's now or never to fill them up. Davis did ask the question to the crew if DPW could just put cement in there and they would smooth it over with interglass, and they said that they have to. Do you want to explain that part, please? To save some costs.
They don't use regular concrete for this. If they used regular concrete, we could do it. It'd take them 30 days, let the concrete cure, and then they could go over it. So they use a specialized mix, and then they put some plywood in there, they put the mix in there, then some fiberglass, and then more of this mix, and so it's a layered effect for the bonding part of it. So I thought maybe we could do it, throw some concrete in there, call her done, go ahead and tile over it, and it was a big no.
That's why the cost is so expensive, because it's a process for it to cure and fill and cure and fill.
I think we'd have to take care of it now when we're here, do it right. And as much as I love slapping some concrete in there, maybe the guys who do the job obviously know probably best for how to make sure, because otherwise I don't know if we would then be having issues with long-term liability because of leakage or anything like that that might turn into a not so good conversation in the future.
It just, for a safety concern, I mean, they're grounded.
Yeah.
But you see water behind the light, it's just kind of scary when it pools, so.
And what was the total impact of the lights then? What would we be at altogether with the tile replacing the caulk and the lights being?
The lights were $4,000 and the tiling would be $8,000.
Okay.
And there was an additional cost of $125. I did have a photo there for you on the curbed wall that's cracked.
Right.
They decided that they're just gonna wrap the interglass all the way up to the top of that, just to form one big seal curbed. And then they would lay the depth markers right in there, the 3'6". Remove the existing ones and put new ones in there, just be formed right in the fiberglass, and they shouldn't crack, because they'll be underneath the fiberglass.
And that's the extra 125?
Correct.
Okay.
I'm good moving the whole thing forward.
Right,
These
and then we'll
changes.
figure out if we do
Yeah.
undesignated
Yeah.
contingency or budget amendment
Yeah.
at some point in the future here. All right, sounds like we've got an answer. Thanks, Amy Jo. So we'll bring this forward to the next regular meeting.
Yeah, what I thought was if we're okay, we'll get Amy Jo going. We'll talk about their costs and everything, but I think they're going to need to know so they can order tile. And then next regular meeting, we'll hopefully have a sense of how the financing will work, from the budgetary standpoint.
Yeah, good point. Yeah, get them going now, and then we can maybe hit our target date.
Mm-hmm.
Perfect.
Good.
Thank you all very much.
Thanks, Amy Jo.
Thank you.
Have a good evening.
Thank you.
Yep, we are moving on to number 10, traffic control on Tower Drive at new crosswalks. I believe this is what we had public comment on at the beginning of our regular meeting tonight. So I'm not sure who might want to be speaking to that topic on the staff side of things, Patrick.
Yeah, we kind of folded in a couple of items here with this. First and foremost was the comments that spurred it on the safety issues at that area. As was mentioned and everyone knows, across from Highview there, the ramps are going to be going in. So we wanted to bring that forward as part of the concern and how we should address that. And then as well, Davis had brought forward a recommendation on having a 25 mile an hour sign that would be for, I'm trying to think of my direction here.
Well, it kind of curves, so it's hard to. It's
Yeah.
coming from Highway K
Right.
towards
Towards
Park Avenue.
Yeah.
Is it 25 now, but it's just not posted?
Correct.
Okay.
There's a sign coming from, like in front of the bank, coming the opposite direction, but there is no sign going out. And Dan Meister and I thought between Highway K and Highview, thank you, would be a good place for this sign to go.
And if your placement on your picture seems right, it seems like even after the Meadow Lane
Yep.
intersection? Okay,
Yeah.
that seems.
Because I'd gotten a number of complaints of people trying to cross where this crosswalk would be, but cars coming flying around the corner. Now, with a speed limit sign, crosswalk ahead signs, these type of things, I think maybe we can get that speed to come down a little bit. People pay attention a little more.
Would maybe that 25-mile-an-hour sign be better closer to the top of the hill as you're going up, so they'd see it right there? So they might slow down before they...
That's already passed. We're talking coming from the other direction. So going uphill, so it's, the crosswalk is even
Oh,
before
okay.
you get up the
You're right.
hill.
Yeah, I think you gotta get in that Meadow Lane and
Yep.
before the curve.
Yeah,
right in there is
someplace
a good
right in there,
spot.
depending on where Eric has things buried. And
Right. Andy?
Is there a painted crosswalk there at all right now?
No.
Is that a part of the plan? We'll paint it? Like all the other?
if we're gonna
Crosswalks.
paint it, then I do wanna have the crosswalk ahead signs, and it doesn't have to be painted. There isn't a regulation that says crosswalks have to be painted. But in this particular case, I think we would like it painted with the addition of the signs that show a crosswalk.
Yeah, I would like to see the sign, a painted crosswalk, and to kind of piggyback on what they had mentioned at the public comment, I think that we need to, overall in the city, need to work on a safety campaign for pedestrians. Me and Matt have kind of started the talking about that a little bit, so we'll be working on that. But I think we need to do anything we can do to make this particular area safer. I like the sign for the speed limit. I like a painted crosswalk and a, crossing ahead sign.
Okay.
Rod?
If we paint the crosswalks, could we imitate the color and the painting of the crosswalks that they're gonna be downtown here? Can we kind of imitate that?
We
So
would
can
be
make it
using white
citywide,
paint.
So,
We don't have these are gonna be colored concrete for the downtown.
right, but we could maybe match it or something, make it so that all the crosswalks match. I'm just thinking out loud. What
No.
color would you paint it?
White.
White crosswalks, white paint.
Going across, are you talking about going across the road or
Two
just at
lines
the-
across the road.
Yeah.
Two lines.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I see what you're saying. Okay, never mind.
Are you thinking the handicap ramp itself?
No, I was thinking, you're talking about the lines, but I was thinking inside the lines.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, our
Yeah,
our
okay,
plan
you're
was,
talking about
we're just
painting the
talking about
lines.
the two white lines.
Okay, carry on.
Matt, go ahead.
Yeah, I think to echo what Andy was saying, and Rod, you're kind of hitting on the same thing too. The idea that there's in the short term here, getting something up, and maybe piggybacking that off of talking to CPD about having them do a couple sit and warns, if you will, kind of just reinforcing that it still is slower in that area. They made a good point that there's increased traffic because we are getting sidewalk in, and I think that this could be the kind of springboard to start having a conversation around the city, that this probably isn't the only location, and as we develop further on, there might be increased locations where we have these issues. Talking about maybe getting some signs, pedestrian crossing signs, or having a campaign to really try to make sure that people are aware that there are state requirements to stop for pedestrians in a crosswalk, and it might be a pain in the butt to stop for somebody, but the car usually wins the battle. So in the short term, I think we should obviously kind of do something along this lines, kind of mull this over, and in the long term, kind of go forward and start having a greater conversation about this. And yeah, so.
So it sounds like we're all in favor of improving the area in general, but maybe we can nail down some specifics for Davis and his crew as far as signage and the like. Mike, you had questions or comments?
I can understand, I think painting the crosswalk is a good idea, especially since it's a newer area, that street's been connected, and it's not too terribly expensive to paint the crosswalk in there, but we are still waiting on the developer to finish up those ramps. I think that's an important part of this, and If you were to put up a pedestrian crossing ahead sign, is there a standard distance that you
Yeah,
put those?
all that is in the Manual of Uniform Traffic Control Devices. It's kind of our Bible for where signs go. So we would look in that book, find out, exactly you'd have a crosswalk ahead and then a crosswalk with an arrow pointing down. So the distance that those signs would need to be placed would come right out of that book.
Okay, thank you.
Andy, you had your light on again?
Yes, this one's for Patrick.
Yes.
You indicate in the packet that soon the developer of Highland Ridge will be constructing the crosswalk ramps. Do you have a date on that yet? I'd like to get that nailed down sooner.
I don't know, but I can try to nail down more specifically when.
Okay. Can we tell them when they need to have it done by?
I guess I would have to review, what we have in developers agreements, but we have expressed the need for him to get going on it. So,
I mean, I would hate to do all this work, paint a crosswalk, put signs up, and to go across 2 muddy pieces of dirt.
I think I would wait until the handicap acceptable ramps are there, and then we would do our work following that.
Okay. Yeah, I just like to see it all done at one time and
right.
sooner, sooner rather than later.
Maybe we could put word out to the developer group that this is a new issue that's come to light.
Sure.
And we're kind of maybe looking at an improved timeline on that piece of their project to get those ramps installed. Maybe that'll help them along, or I don't know if there could be any numerous reasons why they might not have that done yet. So,
Weather.
Jason?
I just wanted to answer Andy's question. I did talk to the developer about a week and a half ago, and he indicated that they were shooting for early May. Temperatures were kind of prohibitive with the overnight cold, and of course now we're in a Arctic freeze or something going on. But I'm assuming it is on the schedule. I know he had mentioned that he does have the contractor lined up and everything. Just to note also that we still have a letter of credit pending on this development that we just haven't released. So we do have funds available in the event that we don't see action on it. We can certainly leverage that against the schedule. So I'm hopeful. I don't have a date, but we did I made contact with him about a week and a half ago. So.
Awesome. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you.
So Davis, what kind of clarification are you looking for us? I mean, it sounds like we're in favor of a painted crosswalk. We're in favor of a crosswalk ahead sign.
Speed limit sign.
Speed limit sign. Was there anything else? The sign pointing at the crosswalk itself?
No, if you want all the attributes to a crosswalk, we will order that stuff up. I'm assuming I have to wait till a regular meeting for a vote, and then we'll get everything ordered up and installed.
Traffic signs, but
Okay.
yeah, well, we can do it as soon as possible, but we'll bring it back to regular if everybody's on board.
Do the formalities. Okay.
Yep.
All right.
Sounds
you.
good. Thanks, Davis.
Thank you.
Where are we at now? All right. Item 11, consider proposed changes to winter parking in municipal lots and on city streets.
I don't have anything in my
In the
packet.
packet on this one, so I'm not sure.
If I memory serves me, we kind of started and stopped, and knowing that winter was coming to an end, and
Right.
gave it a break and brought it back. So
When is that gonna happen?
Right.
there was a draft for amendment to the ordinance, I thought.
There has not been any drafting done by me because the council has been going back and forth between 3 or 4 different possibilities. So I thought I would save myself some work and wait till you got a little more refined as to where you would like to go with this.
Okay.
So I guess I'm looking for guidance.
If I recall correctly, one of the things was doing the alternate side in the lots, right? That was a bit of a contentious point.
That's
So
what
maybe
we
we could
have
start with
currently.
that.
Currently, it's alternate side from
Odd row, odd date.
beginning of December, end of March.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, without the ordinance that in front of me, I don't really feel comfortable talking about this further tonight. Unless somebody can get it real quick.
The existing ordinance or a proposed ordinance?
Well, I know we had this before in our packet,
Mm-hmm.
whatever that was.
The existing ordinance is what Davis just said, alternate side parking.
Well, actually,
Well,
that's
we
not-
were
That's
look-
not what the ordinance says, that's what the signs say. That's part of the
That's
problem.
the confusion.
The ordinance doesn't match up with the signs, the sign doesn't match up with the ordinance, and neither match up with what I believe the will of the council is going to be.
So given that it is kind of a convoluted topic and we don't have much in the packet and memory
Yeah.
doesn't always serve me best, and we don't really have a time issue at this point. We hope.
You have till November.
Yes, we hope.
Bite your tongue.
Hopefully, yeah.
Maybe we could just go ahead and yeah, right, and just bring this back, and maybe next time we could have a little recap in the packet and the ordinance as is currently constituted and what the signage says. Just kind of bring it back again where it was. Maybe what was that, two meetings ago or so? We had
Yeah,
the signage in our packet and all that good stuff, and the ordinance written out.
I think it's been understood by staff that we don't want to let this become an issue as snow is flying outside. We want to make
Absolutely.
sure we come to a resolution well before that, but as you state, we don't need to decide tonight. We can reorganize and put forth some useful information for the discussion coming.
I think that sounds good. I'd
Yeah.
appreciate that. We all okay with this, or
Very
any
much.
further discussion at this point? All right, and then maybe next time we can give Attorney Johnson some direction for some good legal language. Item number 12, James Street Reconstruction Project Update. And that would be you, sir.
Yes. So what we think we'll do is we'll put this on as a continual item on the committee of the whole. If there's nothing to report, we don't have to talk. If there is, we have things to talk about. I put down a few notes and, a couple of the bigger issues that are floating around there, just as sort of a report. Stage one for the contractor, they're moving along, they're grading, they're preparing for paving fairly soon, and we've been trying to make sure that the property owners down in that area are aware that there may be a little bit more in terms of access limitations during this period of time when concrete's being poured. So as far as I know, I think people are getting the information, but if they're watching tonight, here's another source of that, and the contractors will need to keep communicating and working with those people who live down in that area. Right outside our doors here, there's some utility work going on that's outside of stage one. According to the agreement with the DOT, they can do that so long as they keep traffic flowing around it. It's something that I understand the contractor wanted to avoid, but they had been doing fairly well in stage one. They wanted to have a crew keep working, so that's their plan, is to keep a crew working until, to keep the project moving forward. So, did you have a question, Andy, on that particular? Or
I noticed that it's like, is there rules and regulations for us keeping the mud and rock and dirt off the main part of the road? Because it's pretty nasty. I know it's been wet, so they're tracking into the road.
Yeah, no, that's been a topic that has come up often in our weekly meetings with the contractor. We gather every Wednesday, and that's been brought up. And I don't know. I personally don't know what the standard is and what they need to do, but I know they need to do something and meet what DOT is saying and what the city says. But with the work going on this week and the rain, I think an extra effort on their part would be helpful.
Okay, and to piggyback on the same out front here, you said they have to keep both lanes of traffic open, but I've noticed a signal person out there a few times.
And
Is that allowed in that?
That's my understanding is
Okay.
that's okay too.
Okay.
What they can't do is just cut through the whole lane and not allow any through
Okay.
traffic. So,
Okay.
yeah.
That's all I had on that.
Okay. The other big issue that's come up is, as we're going to talk tomorrow, is on the downtown trees. The city had a plan with our corridor enhancements to include trees in the downtown. For whatever reason, the DOT wasn't recognizing that right now. We've had some preliminary discussions with them, and we're going to work through those issues tomorrow. So, with the project manager and the 2 inspectors on site. So. The one thing I wanted to raise, I've had a couple of inquiries from businesses that are down on more on the west end. As work heads down that way, what we talked about was we worked with DOT on some signage for businesses within the DOT right away, and those are popping up. The requests that are coming in are from that area and involve placing signage within city right away on city streets. I wanted to raise that just to get a feel from the council about that and a process if we want to go that route.
Did we present that as an option to the downtown people? I feel like we said no to that.
We wanted to avoid it, yes.
I mean, okay.
I guess it's a similar situation, but the downtown, they are fed by DOT right away, left and right, so we've been able to utilize that in the plan with the signage downtown. But I can see, as far as an equivalence, we've stayed away from that on stage 1. So
It seemed like the issue that we were kind of encountering back when we were discussing this was that if we start getting into city conversations, city right away, we do then turn into city ordinances, and we avoided that because it would be a whole long list of exception
Yeah, right.
voted on, and it would get kind of messy.
yeah,
I guess the best way to put it.
So I've seen a sign out by the Napleton auto dealer that's, road open to such and such businesses. It's been there for months, and I don't know why it's there. If that's even allowed to be there, because I believe it's in the
Carryover from the job up there by the interchange.
from
Yeah.
quite a while ago.
that was, Ann's message here was from last year's project
Oh,
out at the traffic
still
lights.
there.
So
Drop
yeah.
the hammer in,
So they should be done there.
burn it down.
Yeah, so I mean, I could see where people on that side of the town see that sign already and say, "Oh,
Yeah.
well, we want that,"
Yeah.
but we didn't allow that down here. So, I don't know.
Yeah, these guys are, sorry.
Go. I'm
These
good.
guys are all on the state right away, and now we're getting, like Matt was talking about, into the city streets where you have total control. On the state right away, the state can interfere and say yay or nay, but these other streets are totally city control, and the ordinance says no off-site signs. So you'd have to take action in order to allow them. And then, how much do you allow them, where do you allow them, and how
I think
long?
it was no off-site, and there was time frames to be concerned about and carry over across different ordinances and whatnot.
Yeah.
And the time frame is much shorter than the construction period.
So at this point, this is just part of your update, correct? This isn't an agenda item looking for direction?
No, it's raising issues that have come to me related to
Okay.
the project.
Good deal. Thank you.
Mike.
I feel like when it comes to the signage issue, when we talked about getting some signs downtown to point people to the public parking areas, and also having a system of allowing businesses to put, their arrow up there, so to speak, to point them to their businesses was probably the best way to go, because it kind of took the city out of the equation, and as you said, Matt, not having to ignore ordinances, I guess. I did actually see a few examples in the last couple weeks over the weekend where people were putting up makeshift sandwich boards and things to try to get people to their businesses, which, the opportunity already existed for them to use the system that we tried to put in place for them, and they didn't take advantage of it. And I feel like we need to kind of continue that effort as we go through the project, as this is how you can participate if you wish. But I think when it comes to guerrilla marketing, there's going to be pieces of plywood hanging, here or there on a tree or leaning against a post, and I don't think that's the way to go about it.
'Cause, the overall idea boiled down that we were pointing already towards the public parking lot, and that was kind of a neutral, it's very hard to show any sort of favoritism or any sort of issues. It was the public lots in the city for parking. And then from there, it was just, obviously, then, businesses could hop onto those signs on their own, and that's getting in to start talking about changes in ordinances and whatnot. Like I said, it might get messy. And I mean, obviously, we don't want to deter advertisement for businesses, but I think that the impact down there on that west side is going to be a lot less than it is for people who are face-to-face right up there with the actual work down here.
Go ahead, Dave.
I'm not making a recommendation on what you should do one way or the other, but in talking to some of these businesses and in downtown and then along James Street here, the thing that's going to be a little bit different is with downtown here, it's true, James Street is shut down right in front of their businesses, but you can get to the business, within a block or so. And so getting to a parking lot, walking, is a little bit different story than what you're going to have down here on West James Street, where if you think about it, with businesses like Kindred Kids, Dollar General, liquor store, St. Vincent de Paul, the real estate office, they're all, Starrettmeister, they're all going to not have access from James Street, essentially. And so they're going to have to get served off back streets, probably off Maple. And so the question is, is there some assistance that can be provided or allowance made to those businesses to be able to direct people? And I mean, I think there's been some ideas tossed around, with having like access to local businesses, to direct them down Dick's and then over to Maple. And then from there, hopefully people would understand that you take the side road to get to the appropriate business. So I just think that would be a good thing. I know that Julie Hornbacher, who's affiliated with St. Vincent de Paul, called me a few weeks ago, and I shared this with Patrick, and we were trying to come up, because they're in a tough spot right now because, they're hidden back there on Meister, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And, I mean, even now, it's kind of hard to find, and this is just going to make it even more difficult. So just something, I assume you're going to bring this back at a future meeting, but that might be something to consider. I think it would be a good way to help those businesses who I think are in even a tougher spot than the downtown businesses in terms of what this could mean to them. And so if there's some assistance and consideration, it would be good.
Go ahead, Matt.
So just to clarify, kind of the idea of what you're getting from feelers out from them is to put up something on these back streets to kind of guide people along, or like a garage sale sign or something at the end of the street indicating that if you're coming down one of the back streets off of James to get to the business. That's kind of the information, that's kind of the questions that you're getting.
Correct.
Okay.
Maple Avenue will be the new James Street for a few months, because that's really the only road that's going to allow access.
Yeah.
And it's in such good shape.
Which, I mean, again, if we get into putting up signs, start running the risk of getting trucks down there or things like that. And
Yeah, so I mean, what we have in place is what we have in place, but if there are some other preferences, like I said, we'll bring this James Street item every meeting, and if there are updates or any thoughts that I have, I can certainly share them then.
Sorry, Patrick. So,
Go ahead.
Dave, you obviously listed off a number of businesses that have reached out to you. Have you heard from some, all, none of? I mean, there's a whole handful down, kind of scattered through that whole area. Have you heard from only one or two of them, or is there actually kind of a growing consensus?
Just St. Vincent for me.
Okay, so far.
Kindred Kids has raised this before, and in fact, they were one of the ones, not to single them out, but they were talking at one time about just ordering a bunch of like yard sign type things to do that. And We said, no, there's going to be some more organized program than that. And so I think now, as we move closer to phase 2, people are going to start taking that a little bit more seriously, and I think we'd have to have something in place. We were kind of playing catch up a little bit with stage 1 because all of a sudden March came and they started digging stuff up and we were behind a little bit. We still have an opportunity to be ahead of the curve here, but the window's kind of shrinking.
Thanks. Anything further, Patrick?
I think Andy's got something.
Go ahead, Andy. I didn't see your light.
That's okay. I was just, Matt, you were asking if any other businesses have contacted Dave. I actually, Anytime Fitness contacted me asking, they were concerned about access to their property. I think there's just overall general lack of understanding of the project down on that end. And that might be something that, Patrick's going to be still sending out those emails when phase 2 comes. But maybe we should do some more proactive reaching out to the businesses in the area, letting them know that intersection will be open at all times.
Yeah.
And to ease some of those concerns.
One thing I'll encourage is, and if any businesses from down there are listening, or if you hear from them, there was the first James Street business update meeting last week, and they're going to be doing that once a month. So if Anytime Fitness, or this includes everybody along the corridor that wants to learn, if they want to pop in and talk to the DOT or the contractors directly or raise up any issues, that's a good way to do it.
Yeah, that meeting came up kind of quick.
It did.
I didn't have any time to reach out to anybody.
And it came quick on staff too.
Yeah, I know.
But now we've got kind of an understanding of how it'll work, and we'll be able to get the word out a little bit better.
Just so you all know too, our our new business liaison, public relations assistant, Alex Zahn, he started last week, and he went out. First day on the job, he was being sent out to hand deliver some flyers to the area businesses about that meeting. And he will continue to be making regular contact with businesses. And I totally get what you're saying about the west end of the project. That's what I'm saying, is it's not here yet, so people are kind of ignoring it, and then it's going to be like, wow, what's the impact going to be, especially since they see crossovers getting built out there. So that's exactly the kind of work we want Alex to be doing this summer, and he will be doing.
Yeah, sooner the better, I would.
Yep.
I think he may have made a couple trips out that way already.
Oh, good.
What was the frequency of that meeting?
Once a month.
Monthly. That's
Yep.
what I thought. Thank you.
So there'll be maybe 2-3 more meetings total, maybe 4.
Could be, well, it goes into October, so.
October.
Yeah.
Okay.
Hopefully maybe we won't need October if they keep going and
Yeah.
get done, but.
Hopefully 4.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm good. I don't have any more questions.
I think we hit everything I needed to for that.
And like you said, it's going to be a recurring agenda topic, so.
Yep.
Do we know roughly the first day they're going to start pouring concrete in phase 1, Patrick? Do we have an official date yet, or
What they're, official,
weather,
and-
you know?
Yeah, I think they've got, late June on their mind. July 4th is that deadline to get, or you're talking about this
To-
first
to
initial
begin,
one.
yeah, the
This
first
week,
4,
this
yeah.
week they're gonna do
I
that.
believe it's Friday is
Right.
the notification I got.
Yeah,
so.
I thought you meant the whole finishing up of stage 1, but no,
Okay.
they're going to be doing concrete this week. I don't know if this rain has affected that plan at all, but I asked the question in front of the businesses that, just to be clear, that because they're pouring concrete, that's not going to mean a change in allowing vehicles or anything like that. Even once the concrete's cured, it's just the first step in a whole lot of work yet to be done there. So.
I just wasn't sure if it would impede the ability to get to River Road or cross that bridge when they start pouring that concrete, or the first just a couple days.
Right. They have, I believe they have up to 48 hours to where they could close that off, but they don't think they'll need it.
Okay.
Like they said, they'll keep communicating and working with people needing to get in and out. And once that initial layer of pavement or whatever is done, it'll kind of go back to the current situation where you can still go through Manning and get around to Waterloo. But it's just going to be a little bumpy while they do the concrete work.
Yeah. All right. Thank you.
Yep.
Next topic is the future fire station update and discussion. And I see we have the state of the station included in our packet this week.
Yeah, if I may.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, Reagan. So, yeah, we're a few months removed from the acquisition of the old countryside property, and I guess sitting from a staff perspective, financial perspective, we're probably a ways off from seeing a project there, but I think it's important to raise the issue every once in a while. Let Randy talk about, where he thinks things are, and if we get input on kind of maybe a loose road ahead for that, kind of get thoughts on, what are the next steps, what are the things we need to think about. This is, we've made that step, and that's important to get a new facility out there, but we got to take our steps to get there. So that's why we brought that forward.
Yeah, I appreciate it being on the topic because the need has been around for several yesterdays. So the quicker we can kind of start spitballing financing ideas, which is at the end of the day what the crux of the issue is going to be. So we all, I think, up here can firmly recognize the absolute need to develop that space into a more manageable facility for the chief and his crew.
So, Patrick was going to kind of lay the groundwork. I'm just here to answer any questions you may have about the document that I sent along. Also, I would encourage you, as I mentioned, as far as coming and taking a tour of the existing station. I know that Rod took a tour when he was first elected 3 years ago, and anytime anybody wants to come by, I welcome the idea of giving you a tour. And then if anybody had any comments or questions about the other topic that I brought up as far as a training tower.
And much
Matt?
like,
Sorry, Patrick.
much like the success in raising outside funds related to the pavilion, the fire department's done a very good job in raising funds for particular projects. As Randy laid out, the benefits of a tower could be great, even in the interim from having a new facility, something like that can really have an impact on the department and the crew. So I think he's forwarded a concept, something that we could look at and work on.
And something you could build around as the project develops.
Yeah, well, as far as raising money for a training tower, it's a pretty good chunk of change, but like I said, never say never. The more that we can raise, the less tax dollars in the future to go towards something like that. So it'd be great if we could do it all in fundraising.
I agree, but that's a heavy lift.
It is, yep.
So yeah, I think we're all going to get used to the idea of different ways to finance this other than generosity and donation, which
Right.
I agree with you. I would love it, but
So I guess my question was then, if we were to be successful and raise enough money, do we have your blessing as far as putting it on that site?
Rod?
Well, yes, you have my blessing.
There it is.
I was just going to mention that I've had some people say, why do we really need another fire station? Why do we need a new fire station? And I think one of the problems is that most people in Columbus only see the fire station when it's full of people having pancakes.
Right.
And it looks really large.
It's full of people and pancakes, but not full of trucks. And
Right,
yeah.
right. And seeing it full of trucks and knowing that you only have like 3 feet between the trucks
Yep.
for these large guys with all their uniforms and everything, it's really ridiculous how small it is and very dangerous.
Exhaust issues, too.
Maybe we can put Jesse to work, and maybe we can make a video to put on the cable TV showing basically the state of the station in video form.
Yeah, a little PR work on that one might not be a bad investment in itself.
Be a good Channel 980 topic.
Plus, you must be very good at Tetris just to get those trucks out of there.
The only comment I had, I guess, is I like the idea of starting fundraising, especially for something like a training tower. And if it's on site, it's there, you know, when the new fire department is eventually built. The one photo you had in here from the Lake Mill Station, it looks like they actually have their training tower kind of built onto their fire station.
Yes, that's a combination hose tower and training tower. The downside of that is that it's more rather limited compared to this other training tower that we looked at in Waupun. You could not have a live burn in that. With this other facility, you can have the fire right inside the building.
That's why I wanted to ask that
And
question.
right now, some of the things that we would be doing in that training tower, if we were to be fortunate enough to get it built, is like rescuing someone out a window using our ladders. Right now, we have to take a window out of the fire station, second floor, and pass them out that window, and or hose advancement up the stairway of the fire station. It's just not a good situation.
Sure.
Currently, as I mentioned, the only kind of training facility we have is just an area for extrication of vehicles, practice with our jaws of life down at the recycling center, which is a mud hole. A fairly cheap remedy for that, I would like to have an area then also at the site where we could just put a chain link fence around an area, put some slats in there so you don't see the old cars, and so it's hidden. But just give us some space where we can have a decent area to do that as well.
Yeah.
And that, some chain link fence is not gonna cost all that much.
That's a definite added benefit when you put the picture of the
Yep.
recycling center. That's
Right.
an area that I think I'd like to see cleaned up
Yep.
anyway, and
Yep.
have it.
We've got a couple of cars down there now that we've practiced on, and it's ready to get rid of them. But I'm just waiting for the ground to get hard before I have somebody come in and take them out of there.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think they're both worthwhile endeavors, the training tower on the new site and
Great.
your extrication area, which would also show the city that we are actually going to develop this site, and we could do a little bit of it now.
Right.
Matt?
Mike kind of stole my question on the whole tower thing. Just to clarify, part of the hose aspect is if you had one attached, you actually would hang the hoses to dry. You talked about how you have to roll them out.
That would be in a facility like, who had the question as far as the Lake Mills one?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, that would be a hose tower where you just hang it up. Right now, for drying hose, we have for lack of a better term, an oven. The heating element hasn't worked as long as I've been back here. I couldn't see putting any more money into it. You can blow some cold air and that's about it. Ideally, if you can get the hose to dry decently without putting it back on the truck wet, the hose will last longer. So we're going to save in that regard as far as replacing hose down the road. Ideally, if you can just have a tower, hang the hose, you let it hang for 3 days, take it down, roll it up, you're good to go. Whereas if you invest money in another dryer, well, then you've got the money as far as operation of that dryer all the time for the next who knows how many years.
So the idea of having a training tower, you can have actual fire in there,
Yes.
and you can have a lot more opportunity for
Yes.
training in that tower.
Yep.
And then for hose drying, so if you had, obviously you would have a training tower and a hose tower.
Right.
But
The hose tower would be just a part of the station.
so if you did, let's say, a training tower and went that route, I'm assuming you would probably have some sort of location and do an actual dryer within the station, or could you actually still hang the hoses in a training tower that was separate from the building?
The
I-
training
I-
tower would be separate from the building,
Yeah.
and then drying the hose would be a part of the building.
Okay. Just kind of get ideas of different,
Yep.
And I-
And as we get closer to actually looking at plans for the building, I would love to get a bus together and take you around to some existing stations to see what some of the features are.
Is there a running study, or has it been started yet, to start having conversations about what the fire department would like to see? Like moonshot, 14 towers and 74 trucks versus minimal. Is that going right now? Or you just kind of get it,
We
coming
have
in
not
late here?
really done any plans, only because we're looking at several years into the future before it becomes a reality. So I guess as we get closer and we can determine, okay, here's such and such a date where we're gonna start building, at least then we can look at our plans.
Okay.
We did get something a year ago, maybe 2 years ago, showing different fire stations, how much they cost. and stuff like that?
There were some gentlemen from Five Bugles that were
Yeah.
here, and at that time, they had offered to put together an RFP to solicit, how do you describe that, Patrick, as far as companies that would be willing to come in and give us an idea as far as
A
what.
feasibility study or
Yeah,
something.
yeah. And part of that was, it would cost us for them to determine a location. And at that time, I figured, well, we can go out and find our location. And so I looked at 8 different properties, and we ended up with the Countryside property in the end. So,
Andy?
Yeah, I just was curious if, like Marshall, if you have any plan on trying to incorporate EMS into the same building
That-
as
that topic
fire
came up a
department?
couple of years ago, and at the time, the council mentioned that if we wanted to talk to Lifestar, and if they showed an interest, that then that could be incorporated. At the time, now we're talking like probably a year ago, Mike Krieger, the owner of Lifestar, indicated that he would be interested in sitting down and looking into it. So
So at
it's a
some point,
possibility.
there would be some cost sharing of the new facility with
Mhm.
them if
Sure.
we
Yeah.
partnered up.
Or at least some
Right.
sort of offset with a
Or, yeah,
rental.
something.
Pardon?
Or at least some sort of offset with like
Sure.
a rental agreement
Right.
or something like
Yeah.
that with like.
It'd be our upstairs neighbor. So.
Sure, okay. I think it's the right property. I mean, we purchased it for this reason. You know, I don't see why we would waste it.
And people ask you need that bigger property, but yet when you talk about, like if we can put the training areas in there, parking, like right now, we have no off-street parking at all. And areas for us to train, and let's say do our hose testing. We have to test every length of hose every year. Right now, we take it down to, on the end of Sturgis Street, where we got some hydrants down there, no houses. That's where we have to do it. Put the wet hose back on the truck, bring it back. If we can do it all on site, do our hose testing right there, dry the hose properly, put dry hose back on the truck.
And you need a place for 40 people to park, right? You have 40 firefighters. There's a big one.
Right. And then I was joking with you, I think, at the pancake breakfast. I said, we need a bigger station because we're having bigger pancake breakfast. So,
Bigger pancakes too,
Yep.
right?
Yep.
All right.
I guess one thing I wouldn't mind seeing, and we'll see if we can get consensus on this, I wouldn't mind seeing this come back either at the next meeting or maybe a meeting or two down the road, in which maybe you could come back with some numbers on what that training tower might cost you.
Mhm.
We can all get a sense, we
Sure.
can introduce the public to it, maybe start this campaign.
Well, Waupun just had theirs built, and it was 200,000, so
Okay.
I'm just using
That's
that
a good
figure.
ballpark. Yeah.
Yep. And they ended up, for a few extra dollars, they brought in some wood, plywood and boards, and they made props. And so, a couple $100 more for lumber,
Mhm.
and they made they kind of customized it to what they wanted it, so. But if anybody would ever have an interest in going up there and taking a look at it, I'd be glad to take you up there too. I took our training officer along that day when they had their open house up there, and I told him he should have been wearing a bib, because he was drooling.
And then you were saying, as far as like the car extrication site and stuff like that, that you're just basically looking at chain link with
Yes.
some sort of
Yep. Correct.
vinyl through it to obscure view and all that good stuff.
Yep.
Okay. Questions, comments?
I don't have a question, I guess I wanted to make a comment, something I've been thinking about the last couple months, actually, that I'd like to see us maybe get started on as a reoccurring theme, is to have more of a 10-year plan from now, looking at, city finances about things like this. We know we've got the land for the fire station, and just kind of laying out the things that we know that we need to do in the next 10 years to make things happen, and that we're not just we're always going to have to react to things that show up that we don't expect, I guess. But when it comes to like infrastructure improvement, the fire station, there's been dialogue from the library as well about them needing more space. Getting all that stuff out on the table and kind of assessing the facilities that we have right now and making some decisions on, where we need to go in 10 years, whether that starts off with an ad hoc committee or a group of community members. It's not for me to decide, but I think we need to start that dialogue and lay that out so we can kind of have a better idea of when these things can occur.
I like that, prioritizing, then also maybe even looking at that timeline and seeing if we need to just realistically expedite that, because I know that's just a number off the top of your head, but 10 years sounds like an eternity.
5 years, 10 years, but
Yeah, I
something
know, it's off the
incremental
top
so
of
you
your
can
head,
kind
but
of take a little
and then
steps
we
towards-
can look
yeah.
at, like you're saying, a
And there
bigger,
is-
broader picture and say, priority 1, put that in our 3 to 5 year plan. Priority 2 can be in a 5 to 7 year, along with continuing infrastructure improvements on the streets, and then whatever else, like you said, is going to come down the pike that we can't even anticipate today. So I like that idea a lot. We got to keep this thing at the front of our minds and on the front burner. So.
And we do have a truck that's scheduled to be replaced too. But it will be a 50-50 with the rural group, so.
Which
so
truck is it?
Divide and conquer.
Is it the most expensive truck?
No.
It's number 3 on the
And then just one
playlist.
other item you had mentioned about, you'd wanted to continue your meetings around the city as far as the different facilities, that you've had them different city-owned facilities. And I mentioned to the mayor when he mentioned that you're welcome to have your next one at the fire station.
Haven't had a
I
listening
like that.
session.
I think
yet.
that's a really good idea. I'm on board with that.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Okay.
All right. Thanks
Thank
for
you.
your time, Chief.
Thank you.
All right. Are we moving on to item 14, discussion of possible advocacy action to assist Columbus farmers in grassland dairy situation? Is that still on the agenda?
It is. I guess if you give me a couple of minutes here.
bet.
When I added this to the agenda, the news was emerging that the decision by Grassland to back out with agreements with dairy farmers in Wisconsin and related to some greater issues with Canada and things like that. There was stories coming out about it affecting even Columbus farmers. While I believe it's still a big issue, and we're starting to delve a little bit into some advocacy legislative issues here. It looks like since then the situation has been improved for at least Columbus farmers. There's news that dairy farmers have now re-upped with other larger distributors, they're the producers, so they take the milk, and so it's taken a bit of a 180 in terms of the outlook for local farmers. So that's a good thing. I actually called John Prosser. John's the chair of the town of York, but actually his farm, or his son's farm, was featured as one of those that was affected by this issue with grassland, and he explained that things are good for them right now. We kind of talked about the greater situation, and it's really a federal issue, but I thought when we put this on, this is affecting our home, our farmers. Is there something we want to do? I don't know if we still have an interest in delving into it, because the situation seems to have calmed, but that's why it's before you.
I
ahead, Mike.
wouldn't consider myself extremely knowledgeable, but I've been reading the news and saw the mention of the Prosser farm as well, and have heard that most farmers have gotten like short-term contracts, so I don't know that the problem's been fully addressed,
Right.
and I don't claim to know much about it. I'm always looking to learn more about it, and if there's anything that we could do, dealing with our congressman, I'm more than happy to do that. I mean, we're centered or surrounded by an agricultural community, so I think it's important to be supportive of that, and I guess I'd like to know a little bit more in depth about what we could do that could help spur some changes, if this is just a short-term save at this
Yeah.
point. So,
Right. I think there are a lot of broader issues at play and things that can affect the situation. I guess what I would suggest is, if you all want, I can keep a close eye on the issue, maybe talk to some other communities that are affected to see what they may be doing here, and if it seems to be relevant, I can bring it back and we can go from there.
Yeah, I like that approach. We'll have you keep it on your radar, and it'll be in the news for the rest of us to kind of keep our eyes on too. And if we feel the need to bring it back again, we can always make that request in the future. But it's definitely an important issue for our community, being agriculturally based the way we are. So much appreciated.
Eat more ice cream.
Yeah.
Yeah, no problem there.
I'll hold my comment. I believe we're moving on to the next agenda items if we're all finished with this topic. Looks like we are, and I think we're doing number 17 at this point, correct, Patrick? So at this point, I need a motion to convene in the closed session per state statute 19.85, Part 1, Part E, deliberating or negotiating the purchase of public properties, the investment of public funds, or conducting other public business whenever competitive or bargaining reasons require, specifically to discuss potential development in TIF number 4. So I would take that motion.
I'll make that motion as read
Second.
to go into closed session.
You just do voice vote, or is that a roll call? That's a roll call. That's what I thought.
Hendrickson,
Aye.
Kenny,
Aye.
Palat,
Aye.
Reed,
Aye.
Rule,
Aye.
Tone,
Aye.
Traxler,
Aye.
unanimous.